As doctors frantically surrounded her dying Mafia boss, the maid, with an instinct born of desperation, concocted an inscrutable mixture from humble kitchen ingredients, snatching him back from the precipice of death. His first words upon awakening, sharp as a dagger, were, "How did you know?" From that moment, she became his most fiercely guarded secret. Above the magnificent dining table in Lorenzo Vitali's mansion, a crystal chandelier scattered shimmering light over 12 faces. 11 men in that room wished him dead, a fact Lorenzo acutely recognized. "To peace," Lorenzo toasted, his wine glass held high. His voice, imbued with an authority that could make grown men quail, reverberated through the space. At 42, he commanded dominion over half of Chicago's underworld, and this evening he played the part of negotiating neutrality with the other half. Vincent Caruso, the formidable representative of the rival East Side organization, offered a smile devoid of warmth. "To peace," he echoed. Glasses clinked. Lorenzo drank. From the kitchen's shadowed threshold, 19-year-old Clara Alvarez observed, almost imperceptible in her black maid's uniform. She had meticulously cultivated this invisibility over the 3 years she'd served in the Vitali household. Invisibility, she knew, equated to safety. It meant no intrusive questions about her origins, or why a girl her age endured 16-hour workdays without protest. She was about to retreat to the kitchen when Lorenzo's glass slipped through his fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Lorenzo clutched his throat, his eyes bulging, his face transitioning from a furious crimson to an alarming cerulean. "Boss!" Marcus, his bodyguard, lunged forward as Lorenzo's massive frame collapsed. The dining room erupted into pandemonium. Men shouted, chairs toppled backward. Vincent and his henchmen rose slowly, deliberately, their hands conspicuously displayed. "We didn't," Vincent began. "Everyone stays!" Marcus bellowed, his gun already drawn. "Nobody moves, nobody leaves." Clara pressed herself against the wall as armed men swarmed into the hallway. This was the stark reality of her existence. Violence perpetually simmering beneath expensive suits and ostensibly polite discourse. They carried Lorenzo through the corridor, his body seizing uncontrollably. Clara, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm, followed at a discreet distance. She had served him countless dinners, refilled his coffee, ironed his shirts. Yet he had never once met her gaze. She was mere furniture, but furniture often noticed things. The mansion's medical wing, a fully provisioned emergency room, maintained for precisely such crises, glowed with intense light. Dr. Raymond Hayes, Lorenzo's personal physician, was already barking urgent commands. Within 10 minutes, 7 additional doctors arrived. Within 20, their number swelled to 15. Clara stood transfixed outside the glass partition, watching. "His oxygen levels are plummeting," one doctor declared. "Pupils are unresponsive," another called out. "What in hell is this?" Dr. Hayes exclaimed, brandishing the syringe he'd just used. "The antitoxin isn't working. Nothing is working." More doctors poured in, 20, then 30. Word had spread like wildfire through Chicago's clandestine medical channels. Lorenzo Vitali was dying, the cause a baffling enigma. And whoever salvaged him would secure immense riches and the ironclad protection of the city's most potent crime family. Clara witnessed their desperate efforts. Activated charcoal, sodium thiosulfate, atropine, pyridoxine. Each treatment proved futile. Lorenzo's body was stubbornly shutting down, and 50 brilliant minds were utterly confounded. An hour crept by, then 2. "Time of death," Dr. Hayes began, his voice devoid of hope. "No." Marcus pressed his gun against the doctor's temple. "He's not dead until I say he's dead. Fix him." Clara's hands trembled. Every fiber of her being urged her to retreat, to vanish back into the kitchen, to remain unseen, but an insistent detail gnawed at her, something about the shattered wine glass she had glimpsed. She quietly slipped away from the throng and returned to the dining room. Security had cordoned off the area, but they recognized her face, merely the quiet maid, no discernible threat. The shards of the broken glass still lay scattered. Clara knelt, meticulously avoiding contact, and leaned in, inhaling deeply. The scent assaulted her like a physical blow. Bitter almonds mingled with something else. A metallic, deeply disturbing odor she hadn't encountered in 6 years. Not since her father had led her through a cartel laboratory in Mexico City. compelling her to memorize dangerous scents, to recognize when peril lurked near. "The X variant," she whispered, her father's voice echoing in her memory. "Smell that, mija? Sweet and chemical. That's death in a bottle. Russian design, Mexican improvement. No antidote exists because no one's supposed to survive long enough to need one. But there was an antidote, a crude one. Her father, consumed by paranoia that his own bosses might betray him, had engineered it himself. She had witnessed him prepare it countless times, each measurement indelibly etched into her mind, for memorizing had been her sanctuary as her world crumbled. Clara's legs moved before her mind could process. She sprinted to the kitchen, yanking open cabinets, sodium bicarbonate, vinegar, hydrogen peroxide from the first aid kit, crushed activated charcoal tablets, a sprig of milk thistle from the herb garden by the back door. Her hands worked with practiced precision. Mix, dissolve, filter, heat to precisely 98 degrees Celsius. She filled a medical syringe she'd grabbed from the wing supply closet, her hands miraculously steady despite her racing heart. When she re-entered the medical room, 83 doctors had gathered, the most formidable medical intellects money could summon, all utterly helpless. "Stop," Clara said, but her voice was lost in the din. "Stop," she yelled, louder this time. Every head snapped toward her. Marcus's gun swung in her direction, then lowered as he recognized the maid. "Get out," Dr. Hayes ordered. It's a VX nerve agent variant," Clara interjected, her voice firm. "Modified with an organocompound. You're treating for standard poisoning. You're wrong." The silence that followed was absolute. "Who the hell?" Hayes began. "Let her talk," Marcus said quietly, his eyes bloodshot. Lorenzo was the closest thing to family he had. Clara's voice trembled but held steady. The symptoms, meiosis, bronchospasm, convulsions, they match. But the timeline is wrong. Standard VX would have killed him in 10 minutes. This is slower. It's designed to mimic a dozen other conditions, making you waste time treating the wrong poison. "And you know this how?" Hayes demanded. "Because my father made it," the words tumbled out. "I have an antidote. It might not work, but nothing else is working either." She held up the syringe. Hayes looked at Marcus. Marcus looked at Lorenzo's ashen face, his barely perceptible breathing. "Do it," Marcus commanded. 3 doctors protested. Hayes silenced them with a withering glance. Clara stepped forward, her entire body quivering. She found the IV line, inserted the syringe, and slowly pushed the plunger. 15 seconds, 30, 45. Lorenzo's back arched. Someone cursed. Clara recoiled, certain she had just completed what the poison began. Then Lorenzo gasped, a deep rattling breath that filled his lungs. Color rushed back into his face. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused but unmistakably alive. The monitors began their steady beeping, oxygen levels rising, heart rate stabilizing. Clara's knees buckled. She collapsed onto the floor, the empty syringe rolling from her hand. 83 doctors stared at the 19-year-old maid who had accomplished what they could not. In the corner, Marcus lowered his gun, tears streaming down his face. Dr. Hayes stood over Lorenzo's slumbering form, checking his vitals for the 6th time in an hour. "It doesn't make sense," he muttered. "The compound she described, it shouldn't work. The ratios are wrong. The delivery method is inefficient. By every medical standard, this was sheer luck, not science." "Luck?" Marcus, leaning against the wall with crossed arms, scoffed. "You had 83 doctors in this room. Where was your luck?" "I'm simply stating we don't definitively know what actually saved him," Hayes insisted, pointing at the IV bag. "It could have been his own immune response. It could have been the cumulative effect of everything we'd already administered. Correlation isn't causation." "She knew the poison," interjected Dr. Lisa Chen, one of the toxicology specialists. "She identified it when none of us could." "She guessed," Hayes shot back, "and we have no idea who she truly is. For all we know, she's connected to whoever did this. Perhaps she had the antidote ready because she knew the poison was coming." In the hallway outside, Clara sat on a wooden bench, still in her maid's uniform. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, her shift having concluded 7 hours earlier. 4 armed guards surrounded her, neither arresting her nor explicitly protecting her, merely waiting. Tony, Marcus's second-in-command, a lean man, approached her. "Do you have family? Someone we should contact?" Clara shook her head. No one. How old are you? 19. Tony scrutinized her. Where did you learn about poisons? My father taught me, Clara responded, the lie of omission flowing effortlessly. Before he died. What was his name? Clara hesitated, a fraction too long. Does it matter? Tony's eyes narrowed. Yeah, it does. Before she could answer, Marcus emerged from the medical room. Boss is stable. He'll wake up sometime tomorrow, doctors say. He looked directly at Clara. You stay here in the mansion. There's a guest room on the 3rd floor. You don't leave. You don't make phone calls. You don't talk to anyone. Understand? It was not a request, Clara nodded. Tony, get her settled. 2 guards on the door. As Tony led her away, Clara heard the arguments resume behind her. Some of Lorenzo's men hailed her as a miracle. Others branded her a plant, a spy. One voice chillingly suggested making her disappear before she became a liability. The guest room was larger than her entire apartment. Clara sat on the edge of the 4-poster bed, still wearing her shoes, too wary to make herself comfortable. Through the window, she could see the compound's walls, bristling with security cameras and motion sensors. She had saved Lorenzo Vitali's life, and now she was a prisoner. 26 hours after the poisoning, Lorenzo's eyes opened. The first sight was Marcus, slumped asleep in a chair beside the bed. The second, the array of medical equipment surrounding him. The third, the IV in his arm. Marcus, he rasped. Marcus jolted awake, eyes wide. Boss! Jesus, how do you feel? Like I died. Lorenzo's throat felt like sandpaper. Did I? Almost. Marcus poured water, helping Lorenzo drink. You were gone for 3 hours. 83 doctors couldn't save you. Then how am I still alive? Lorenzo's gaze reflected a complex mix of emotions. Clara, the maid. She concocted something in the kitchen, injected it into you, and your heart stabilized in under 60 seconds. Lorenzo absorbed this revelation. The maid, the quiet one, she's worked here for 3 years. It seems she possesses knowledge of poisons. Where is she? Upstairs under guard. Bring her to me at once. Boss, we can't be sure who to trust. Now, Marcus. 10 minutes later, Clara stood hesitantly in the doorway of Lorenzo's private room. He had been moved from the medical wing to his personal quarters. Fear was etched on her face, her dark hair pulled back, hands clasped tightly before her. Come in, Lorenzo commanded, his voice frail yet resonant. Close the door. She complied. Lorenzo scrutinized her, truly seeing her for the first time. She was petite, perhaps 5 feet 4 inches tall, with dark darting eyes that flitted around the room like a cornered animal seeking escape routes. She was young, too young for the expertise she apparently held. Marcus tells me you saved my life. Ah, yes, sir. How? Clara swallowed hard. I recognized the poison. I created a counteragent. From what? Kitchen supplies, mostly. Sodium bicarbonate, hydrogen peroxide, some herbs. The precise proportions were critical. And you knew these ratios because... Here, the moment she had dreaded finally arrived. Clara's father hadn't just worked for a cartel. He had been one of their chief chemists, developing weapons responsible for scores, perhaps hundreds of deaths. If Lorenzo uncovered that connection, he would perceive her as a threat, or worse, as leverage. My father was a chemist, she began, her voice carefully modulated. He taught me about compounds, how to identify and neutralize them. What kind of chemist teaches his daughter about nerve agents? Clara met his gaze, the kind who wanted her to survive. The silence stretched, heavy and palpable. Lorenzo's eyes were piercing, intelligent. He was assessing her, weighing every syllable against an internal calculus. My men believe you might have been involved in the poisoning, he stated finally. That you had foreknowledge. I didn't. They think you're a spy. I'm not. Then why did you help me? You could have remained silent, let me die, collected your paycheck, and vanished. Clara's voice was barely a whisper. Because I could. Because... She struggled for words. Because witnessing someone die when you have the power to prevent it, that's not something you simply move past. Lorenzo remained silent for a prolonged moment. Then he pressed a button beside his bed. Marcus entered instantly. She stays, Lorenzo declared. Full protection detail. No one touches her. And Marcus, find out who poisoned me. Start with Vincent's people. Track their movements for the last 72 hours. Boss, are you certain about her? Lorenzo looked at Clara. No, but she's either the person who saved my life or the person linked to those who tried to take it. Either way, I want her close. He then turned back to Marcus. And get her out of that uniform. She's not a maid anymore. Vincent Caruso's phone rang at 4 a.m. He answered on the first ring. In his line of work, late-night calls signified either substantial profit or untimely demise. He's alive, the voice reported. Vincent bolted upright in bed. That's impossible. I saw him myself, walking around talking as if nothing happened. Vincent ended the call and stared at the ceiling. The poison had cost him $200,000. It had been engineered by the Sinaloa cartel's finest chemist, a compound so sophisticated that no American hospital could identify, let alone treat it. The seller had guaranteed its efficacy. 6 hours from ingestion to death, with symptoms mimicking everything from heart attack to stroke. Untraceable, unstoppable. Lorenzo Vitali should be dead. By sunrise, Vincent had made 3 calls. By noon, he was seated in a warehouse on the south side, facing 2 men who had flown in from Mexico overnight. The first was Mateo's former partner, a chemist named Ruiz. The second was Hector Vega, the cartel's enforcer who specialized in eliminating loose ends. Explain to me, Hector said quietly, how Lorenzo Vitali is still breathing. Vincent spread his hands. I don't know. We followed the protocol exactly. He drank the wine. He collapsed. My contact inside confirmed over 80 doctors showed up, and none of them could figure it out. He should have died. Should have, Hector echoed, but didn't. Ruiz leaned forward. Someone identified the compound. That's the only explanation. Someone knew what they were dealing with and how to counteract it. That's impossible, Vincent interjected. Your boss told me only 3 people in the world know that formula. No, Ruiz corrected. 2 are dead. I'm the 3rd. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Then how? Vincent demanded. Ruiz pulled out his phone, made a call, speaking rapid Spanish. He listened, his face growing progressively darker. When he hung up, his hands trembled, not from fear, but from a simmering rage. Mateo Alvarez, he said. Vincent frowned. Who? A chemist, brilliant, paranoid. He worked with us 8 years ago, helped develop this exact compound. Then he stole samples, fled north, and vanished. Ruiz's jaw clenched. We assumed he was dead, but if he's alive... He's not, Hector interjected, scrolling through his phone. Mateo Alvarez was found dead in Juarez 6 years ago. Knife wound, case closed. Then someone he taught, Ruiz insisted. Someone who knew his work. Hector made another call, spoke briefly, then waited. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I have a name, Clara Alvarez, 19 years old, Mexican-American, employed as a maid at the Vitali mansion for 3 years. The room fell silent. Alvarez, Vincent uttered slowly. Related? Has to be. Ruiz stood up, pacing. Mateo had a daughter, a child. She was maybe 12, 13 when he disappeared. He used to bring her to the lab sometimes. I remember because it was strange. Who brings a child around chemical weapons? A man teaching her to survive, Hector offered. Ruiz nodded. She must have memorized his work, and now she's told Lorenzo everything. Vincent felt a knot of ice in his stomach. What exactly did Mateo know? Everything, every formula we developed, every client we sold to, every weakness in every compound. Ruiz turned to Hector. If she possesses her father's notes, if she remembers even half of what he knew, she's a walking encyclopedia of our operations, Hector finished, and she just proves she's smart enough to use that information. Vincent rose. Lorenzo doesn't know who she is, can't know. He's just keeping her close because she saved him. For now, Hector said, but he's not stupid. He'll investigate. And when he discovers her father worked for us, he'll realize she's the key to unraveling every poison, every technique, every secret we've meticulously built over a decade. So, what do we do? Vincent asked. Hector's phone buzzed. He read a message, then looked up. My people just confirmed the girl is still at the mansion, protected, but not untouchable. He stood. We eliminate her before Lorenzo understands what he possesses in the Vitali compound. Vincent shook his head. That's suicide. Then we draw her out. How? Hector smiled, a thin, cold crescent. Everyone has pressure points. Find hers. By evening, Clara's name had spread through the criminal underworld like wildfire. The maid who deciphered the poison code, the girl who saved Lorenzo Vitali. Stories embellished with each retelling. Some hailed her as a medical prodigy. Others whispered she was Vitali's secret daughter, strategically placed as a maid for protection. In a listening post 3 blocks from the Vitali mansion, an assassin named Jade received her orders via encrypted message. Target, Clara Alvarez. Age, 19. Eliminate within 48 hours. Payment, $500,000. Jade scrutinized the single photo she had been sent. A grainy security camera image of a small, dark-haired girl in a maid's uniform. She had successfully eliminated politicians, drug lords, and witnesses under federal protection. This, she surmised, would be effortless. What Jade didn't know, what no one except Hector knew, was that Clara Alvarez wasn't merely Mateo's daughter. She was his greatest creation, and her father had meticulously prepared her for precisely this moment. In the Vitali mansion, Clara lay awake in her locked room, staring at the ceiling. She could sense it, the oppressive weight of unseen eyes, the subtle shift in atmospheric pressure that preceded violence. Her father had taught her to recognize this particular premonition. "When they start hunting you, Mia," he had once said, "you'll feel it before they strike. Trust your instincts, and whatever you do, don't freeze." Clara's hands curled into fists beneath the blanket. She had saved Lorenzo's life, and in doing so, she had painted an indelible target on her own. Somewhere out there, individuals who knew her father's name were coming for her. And this time, kitchen supplies would not suffice to save her. Lorenzo's consigliere, Daniel Costa, was a man who prioritized information above all else. While others relied on firearms and intimidation, Daniel relied on meticulously compiled files, extensive databases, and the patient extraction of truth. He had been digging into Clara Alvarez for 36 straight hours. What he uncovered made him reach for the whiskey at 9 a.m. "Boss," Daniel said, entering Lorenzo's study, "we need to discuss the girl." Lorenzo looked up from the reports scattered across his desk. His color had returned, though his movements remained slow. "What did you find?" Daniel laid down a folder. Clara Maria Alvarez, born in Mexico City, 2006. Mother died in childbirth. Father, Mateo Alvarez. And Mateo wasn't just any chemist. He was the Sinaloa cartel's lead weapons developer for 6 years, specializing in toxins that couldn't be traced or treated. He created the compound that nearly killed you. Lorenzo's expression remained neutral, but his fingers ceased their movement. Daniel continued. 8 years ago, Mateo stole cartel research and fled. He took his daughter, Clara, with him. They vanished for 2 years. Then, Mateo turned up dead in Juarez, throat cut. The girl disappeared until she surfaced here 3 years ago. "Under a fake background check," Lorenzo said quietly. "Someone helped her create a new identity. Not a perfect one, I found the seams, but good enough to pass casual inspection. She was 16 when she applied here." "Yes." Lorenzo leaned back. "A 16-year-old running from a cartel. She certainly could have sought police intervention, perhaps even witness protection, and indeed, she did." "I found the report," Daniel announced, detailing a record from Juarez PD. She'd attempted to report her father's murder, providing names and comprehensive details. Just 2 days after her statement, the 3 officers who took her testimony were brutally murdered. Clara vanished that very night. "She learned the lesson," Lorenzo murmured, a profound realization dawning. "Authority offers no real protection." "But there was more," Daniel revealed, pulling out another page. "I found records from when Mateo was still alive." Neighbors in their Mexico City apartment building had reported Mateo bringing his daughter frequently to his lab. Witnesses recounted him making her memorize chemical formulas and quizzing her on various compounds. One teacher even filed a concern report when Clara arrived at school reeking of sulfur and industrial solvents. "He wasn't merely training her." Daniel's voice grew grim with a chilling cadence. "He was weaponizing her. He understood the cartel's eventual pursuit, so he transformed his daughter into a living library of his life's work. Everything he knew, she knows. Every formula, every antidote, every fatal flaw, and every poison he ever concocted. Lorenzo sat in thoughtful silence for a long while. Does she know we possess this information? No, Daniel confirmed. Has anyone else acquired these details? Not yet, but if the Kaloa people prove as astute as I suspect, and they are, they've already pieced together her true identity. Lorenzo rose, wincing slightly. Bring her to me, alone. Clara had anticipated this very moment since the day she'd saved him. 3 years navigating the underworld had taught her the intricate currency of information. They would investigate, they would uncover, and then they would make their ultimate determination. Was she an asset or a liability? When Marcus came for her, she offered no resistance. Lorenzo awaited her in his study, a room steeped in the rich aroma of leather and old money. Bookshelves filled with genuine tomes, not merely decorative displays, lined the walls. A distinguished mid-century chess set rested on a side table. Sit, Lorenzo commanded. Clara complied, hands folded serenely in her lap. Lorenzo studied her intently for a beat, then slid Daniel's folder across the polished desk. I know who your father was. Clara's face remained impassive, yet her pulse galloped. I know what he engineered, what he devised, what he imparted to you. Lorenzo's voice was calm, almost soothing. I know you witnessed his death. I know you bravely sought justice and almost perished for it. I know you've been cloaked in secrecy for 3 years. Clara's throat tightened instinctively. So, now I shall ask you a question, and I expect nothing less than the unvarnished truth. Lorenzo leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. How much of your father's work do you truly recall? This was it, the pivotal moment that would define everything. Clara met his eyes directly. All of it, every last detail. He compelled me to commit everything to memory. She recounted. Formulas, compounds, antidotes, delivery systems. He would rouse me at 3 a.m. and relentlessly quiz me until every answer was faultless. If I faltered, he would... She paused. He wasn't cruel. He was consumed by desperation. He knew they would murder him. He solely desired my survival. Could you replicate his work? Lorenzo pressed. Some of it, given the appropriate equipment and materials. Lorenzo leaned back, fingers critically steepled. Do you comprehend how many individuals would pay millions to possess the knowledge residing within your mind? Yes. Do you also understand how many would murder to prevent you from disseminating it? I am learning that, she conceded. A fleeting spectral smile touched Lorenzo's lips. You saved my life with common kitchen items and childhood recollections. My physicians, seasoned professionals with decades of training and millions invested in equipment, couldn't achieve what you accomplished in 10 minutes. I was fortunate, Clara demurred. No. Lorenzo's voice held an unyielding firmness. You were prepared. There is a profound difference. He rose, walking towards the window. The individuals who poisoned me are undoubtedly aware of your identity by now. They comprehend what you signify. They will come for you. I know, Clara affirmed. And when they do, kitchen supplies will not suffice to protect you. Clara remained silent. Lorenzo turned back to her. I am going to extend an offer. You may decline, and I will arrange for a new identity, financial resources, and protection extending to the limits of my influence. You will dedicate the remainder of your life to evasion, or, he paused deliberately, or you remain. You work for me. I will provide you with a laboratory, security, and extensive resources. You will leverage your father's knowledge to safeguard this family. In exchange, this family will safeguard you. Clara gazed at him, unblinking. You trust me? Lorenzo's tone turned reflective. Trust is earned, but you have certainly made a substantial down payment. His eyes, while calculating, lacked unkindness. Your father fabricated weapons. I am offering you the chance to forge shields instead, to utilize what he instilled in you to preserve lives rather than extinguish them. And if I prove more valuable as a weapon, Clara challenged. Lorenzo genuinely smiled this time. Then we shall confront that particular dilemma when the time arrives. Clara slowly rose. Her entire existence had been defined by concealment, by survival, by remaining inconspicuous. Lorenzo offered the complete antithesis, visibility, purpose, power. It instilled profound terror within her. Yet, it also felt like the first genuine choice she had ever been granted. "I'll stay," she resolved. Clara's new room, situated in the east wing 2 floors below Lorenzo's private quarters, was no longer a temporary guest room, but a permanent abode. Marcus had assigned 4 guards to rotate shifts outside her door. "They aren't merely protecting you," Marcus had stated bluntly. "They are also observing you." Clara understood implicitly. Trust, she knew, took time. She had been provided with a laptop, access to extensive medical journals, and a preliminary catalog of equipment Lorenzo was prepared to acquire for her laboratory. The lab itself was under preparation, a converted wine cellar beneath the mansion, designed with sufficient depth to contain any potential accidents. It was 2 a.m. when a knock disturbed her sleep. "Miss Alvarez?" A woman's voice, professional and medical. "We need to conduct some blood work, Mr. Vitali's orders." Clara sat up in bed. No one had informed her of any blood work. "Can it not wait until morning?" Clara called out, a thread of apprehension weaving into her tone. "I'm afraid not. We're monitoring for residual toxins from the antidote you administered. It's time sensitive." Through the door, Clara overheard one of her guards, a man named Pete, say, "Let me verify this." "Of course," the woman's voice remained unruffled. "Dr. Hayes, our medical director." "Check with him if you need to." Clara heard Pete speaking softly into his radio, initiating a confirmation request. She pulled on a robe, her instincts prickling. Something felt fundamentally amiss, yet she couldn't pinpoint why. "Hayes confirms it," Pete announced. "Says he should have ordered it earlier." The door swung open. 2 individuals entered, a woman in scrubs carrying a medical bag, and a younger man, also in scrubs, pushing a portable blood pressure monitor. "This won't take long," the woman said, offering a practiced smile. She appeared to be in her 40s, exuding an air of competence, her dark hair pulled back into a severe bun. Clara stood by the bed, observing their setup. The man positioned the blood pressure monitor. The woman opened her medical bag, meticulously removing vials and needles. "Just sit here," the woman instructed, gesturing towards the bed. Clara complied. The woman expertly pulled on latex gloves with a practiced, almost unnerving efficiency. And that was the precise moment Clara's world lurched, the faint, almost imperceptible scent of a chemical preservative permeating the gloves, a smell that absolutely should not be there, entirely distinct from the usual powdered varieties. This was specific, unique, a compound her father had utilized in his lab to guard against the skin absorption of toxins, a standard cartel issue. Clara's eyes instantly darted to the woman's face, then to the man's. Their expressions remained serene, professional, yet now she plainly perceived it. The pronounced tension in their shoulders, the way the man's hand hovered almost imperceptibly near his waist. The woman uncapped a syringe. "Just a small poke," she promised. Clara's mind raced with frantic speed. If she screamed, they would undoubtedly kill her, and likely the guards as well. If she attempted to flee, they would simply shoot her in the back. She had, at most, 5 seconds before that needle, whatever sinister substance it contained, irrevocably ended her life. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "When you cannot fight and you cannot run, Mia, you obfuscate." "Wait," Clara gasped, her voice trembling, a genuine tremor, not feigned. "I feel dizzy. I think I'm going to—" She swayed dramatically, then vomited onto the floor. The expulsion was not forced. Her sheer terror made it agonizingly easy. The contents of her stomach splattered across the woman's shoes. "Jesus!" the woman exclaimed, recoiling sharply. In that split second of crucial distraction, Clara lunged not at the woman, but towards the door. She seized the handle, yanked it open, and shrieked, "They're not doctors! The gloves!" Pete, disoriented, turned. The male assassin's hand flew to his waist, drawing a gun. Clara dropped flat as Pete fired. The shot went wide, striking the blood pressure monitor, which erupted in a shower of sparks and plastic shrapnel. The female assassin abandoned the syringe, her own weapon materializing from within her medical bag. More guards, alerted by the commotion, pounded up the stairs. The hallway abruptly exploded into utter chaos. "The gloves!" Clara screamed from her prone position on the floor. "They're using cartel preservative. Check their credentials." The male assassin fired twice. Pete collapsed, clutching his shoulder. The woman pivoted, aiming her gun directly at Clara. Marcus appeared at the end of the hallway, unleashing 3 precise shots. The woman crumpled to the ground. The male assassin made a desperate dash for the window. He crashed through it, plummeting 2 stories onto the meticulously manicured lawn below. Searchlights abruptly blazed to life. More gunfire crackled ominously in the night air. Clara scrambled to Pete, pressing her hands firmly against his bleeding shoulder wound. "Stay with me! Pressure! You need pressure!" Blood welled between her fingers. Pete's face was pale, but he remained conscious. "How did you know?" he gasped, his voice weak. "The gloves. They smelled wrong." More guards flooded the hallway. Someone pulled Clara away. Another guard took over, tending to Pete. Marcus crouched beside the lifeless woman, meticulously searching her pockets. "No ID, no phone. Professional," he observed grimly. He looked at Clara. "You saved your own life, and Pete's." Clara's hands now shook uncontrollably, slick with Pete's blood. "The man who leaped. He was dead before he hit the ground. Snipers got him." Marcus pulled her to her feet. "Come on. You're moving to the secure wing now." As they escorted her away, Clara cast a final glance back at the shattered window, the blood staining the floor, the fake medical equipment strewn everywhere. 2 expertly trained assassins inside the compound, having bypassed security with insidious ease. They had come remarkably close to succeeding. Lorenzo met them on the 3rd floor, fully dressed despite the late hour. His gaze fell upon Clara's bloodied hands, then met her eyes. "They found you faster than I anticipated," he stated quietly. "They'll try again," Clara replied, her voice far steadier than she felt. "I know," Lorenzo nodded to Marcus. "Double the security. No one gets near her without 3 layers of verification. And Daniel," he added, "I want to know precisely how they gained entry." "Already on it, boss," Daniel affirmed immediately. Lorenzo's gaze fixed on Clara. "Your expertise isn't just valuable anymore. It's a direct threat to those who've cemented their power through clandestine operations. They won't rest until you're gone." Clara, wiping blood from her hands onto her robe, retorted, "Then I suppose we must prove I'm indispensable." A flicker of something akin to respect crossed Lorenzo's face. "Your lab. I'm expediting the timeline. It'll be operational in 48 hours, and so will I." 48 hours after the assassination attempt, Lorenzo guided Clara through a labyrinth of unfamiliar corridors. Marcus, ever vigilant, scouted ahead, while 2 more guards brought up the rear. They descended 3 flights of stairs, halting before a formidable steel door, reminiscent of a bank vault. Lorenzo pressed his palm against a biometric scanner. The door hissed open, unveiling a spiral staircase plunging into darkness. "My grandfather built this during Prohibition," Lorenzo explained as they descended, "to house Canadian whiskey. My father repurposed it into a panic room amidst the gang wars of the 80s. Now it's yours." The stairs ended at another door. Beyond it, lights flickered on automatically, revealing a sight that stole Clara's breath. The subterranean laboratory stretched at least 40 feet, encased in steel walls and floored with seamless concrete. Fume hoods lined one side, while a comprehensive spectrometry setup commanded the center. Equipment so advanced, it likely cost more than most houses. Refrigeration units hummed alongside a softly whirring ventilation system. Rows of empty shelves stood poised for occupation. "The ventilation feeds to 3 separate exit points," Marcus detailed. "Should anything go awry, the entire room seals and vents externally. It's explosion-proof. The walls are 18 inches of reinforced concrete." Clara drifted slowly through the expansive space, her fingers tracing the polished countertops. 3 years of scrubbing floors and washing dishes dissolved as she stood amidst a laboratory that rivaled any her father had ever worked in. "The equipment list you provided?" Lorenzo gestured to the far wall where crates were stacked. "It's all here, plus a few additions Daniel thought you might appreciate." Clara opened a crate, revealing spectrophotometers, chromatography columns, precision scales, and thousands of reagents in sealed containers. "This is..." She struggled for words. "This is too much." "No," Lorenzo countered firmly. "This is survival, yours and mine." He moved to the lab's center. "You saved my life once with kitchen supplies and sheer desperation. Let's ensure no one can ever threaten it again. He produced a sealed evidence bag containing the wine glass he had drunk from, still bearing residue. This is what nearly killed me, Lorenzo stated. I want you to analyze it, deconstruct it, tell me everything, who made it, its origin, and any other threats they might possess. Clara carefully took the bag, holding it to the light. Even sealed, she discerned, a faint chemical residue clinging to the crystal. I'll need samples from Vincent's associates, she said, anyone who had access to the dining room that night. Already being arranged, Lorenzo confirmed. And I'll need... Clara hesitated. I need you to understand the implications of what I'm about to uncover. My father's work. It's not just science. It's a blueprint for crimes spanning 2 continents. Murders disguised as heart attacks, poisonings masquerading as allergies. If you start connecting signatures, identifying patterns, you'll expose an entire network, Lorenzo finished. Good. Some of those contracts might even lead back to you, to this family. Lorenzo's expression remained unreadable. My father once resorted to poison, stupid, crude. It ignited a war that claimed 20 good men. I don't operate that way. If I desire someone dead, they see it coming. He met her gaze. But I need to know who's wielding these weapons against me, and I need to know how to neutralize them. Clara nodded slowly. It'll take time, days, perhaps weeks. Take what you need, Lorenzo replied. Time, resources, whatever. He moved towards the door, then paused. Clara, the individuals who dispatch those assassins won't desist. You realize that. I know they'll try again, she acknowledged, differently and more shrewdly. I know, Clara reiterated, but now I have this. Her gesture encompassed the lab. And they're going to regret teaching my father so well. Lorenzo almost smiled. Marcus remains down here with you, 2 guards at the stairwell, 2 more at the outer entrance. No one enters without my express authorization. Not even Dr. Hayes, especially not Hayes. He's brilliant, but he's also prideful. You embarrassed him. Pride makes people stupid. After they departed, Clara stood alone in her laboratory, her sanctuary, her fortress, her weapon. She unsealed the evidence bag and meticulously transferred a sample of the wine residue into a testing vial. Under the spectrometer's illumination, the compound began yielding its secrets. The primary structure was disturbingly familiar, the VX variant her father had helped develop. But there were addition stabilizers extending the poison's shelf life, a delivery mechanism crafted to delay symptoms just long enough to sow confusion. Buried within the molecular signature, like a fingerprint, was a rare, expensive titanium-based catalyst. Her father had utilized it in precisely 3 formulas, each custom designed for specific clientele. Clara mentally accessed her father's notebook, flipping through pages she had committed to memory years ago. The titanium catalyst had been sold to only one organization outside the Sinaloa cartel, Vincent Caruso's operation, 4 years prior. She had him. Clara's hands moved swiftly, meticulously documenting everything, constructing an unassailable chain of evidence that even Lorenzo's enemies couldn't refute. The compound structure, the rare elements, the signature techniques linking this poison directly to her father's work and to its purchasers. By dawn, she possessed a complete analysis. By noon, she held irrefutable proof. Vincent Caruso hadn't merely attempted to kill Lorenzo. He had employed a weapon specifically engineered by Sinaloa cartel chemists, acquired through illicit channels, and deployed with the audacious arrogance of someone convinced of their untouchability. Clara printed her findings, sealing them in a folder. When Lorenzo descended to check on her, she handed it to him without a word. He read in silence, his expression darkening with each passing page. "This is enough to ignite a war," he finally stated. "Yes," Clara agreed, "but it's also enough to end one." Lorenzo regarded her, truly regarded her, not as a maid, not as a liability, not even as an asset, but as an equal. "Welcome to the family business, Clara Alvarez." Dr. Raymond Hayes convened a meeting, unbeknownst to Lorenzo. 8 physicians, the core medical team safeguarding the Vitali family's health, gathered in the mansion's conference room. They anticipated a routine briefing. Instead, Hayes dropped Clara's analysis onto the table. "This," he declared, "is what the girl claims killed Lorenzo." Dr. Chun picked it up, scanning the pages. This is actually quite thorough. The molecular breakdown, the catalyst identification. She's 19 years old, with no medical degree, Hayes interrupted. No formal training, no credentials. And somehow, we're supposed to accept that she identified a compound that 8 toxicology specialists couldn't? She saved his life, Dr. Martin Reeves, the youngest of the group at 32 and still idealistic, pointed out. We can't simply disregard that, can we? Hayes leaned forward. Consider this. She appears out of nowhere with perfect knowledge of an obscure poison. She just happens to have an antidote ready. Her father worked for the cartel that likely manufactured the compound. You think she was involved? Chun inquired carefully. I think it's convenient. Too convenient. Hayes produced another file. I've been making calls. The compound she used to save Lorenzo? It shouldn't work. The ratios are medically unsound. The delivery method was dangerous. By every scientific standard, Lorenzo should have died from her cure before the poison killed him. But he didn't, Reeves interjected. Lucky. Hayes's voice sharpened. And now Lorenzo expects us to take orders from her? A girl who learned chemistry from a cartel murderer? The room fell silent. Dr. Chun spoke cautiously. What are you proposing? I'm proposing we do our jobs. We conduct our own analysis of the poison. We independently verify her findings. And we make it unequivocally clear to Lorenzo that medical decisions are the purview of licensed physicians, not the help, Reeves finished, his tone dry. Hayes's face flushed. Not someone whose qualifications we can't verify and whose background raises serious questions. Clara sensed the shift immediately when she entered the medical wing the following morning to request tissue samples from Lorenzo's recovery. The nurses averted their gaze. Dr. Chun, previously cordial, offered a tight smile and fabricated an excuse to depart. Dr. Hayes awaited her in his office. Miss Alvarez. He neither stood nor offered a seat. I understand you've been requesting access to patient samples. Yes, I need to verify that Lorenzo's system has fully cleared the... Any medical testing goes through me. Hayes's tone was professional but frigid. I'm the chief physician. You may have assisted during the emergency, but standard protocols still apply. Clara maintained a steady voice. Lorenzo asked me to monitor his recovery. And I'm asking you to submit your requests through proper channels, with proper documentation, following proper medical procedure. The message was unambiguous. Stay in your lane. Clara submitted the formal request. Hayes denied it, citing insufficient medical justification. She attempted to access the mansion's medical database to cross-reference symptoms. Her login credentials had been revoked. When she inquired about attending the weekly medical briefing, she was informed it was exclusively for licensed practitioners. Marcus was the first to notice. They're freezing you out, he said, finding her in the lab that evening. She was working on secondary compounds, attempting to identify other toxins that might employ similar signatures. I've noticed Hayes is turning the others against you. They say you're unqualified. They claim Lorenzo is making a grave error by placing his trust in you. Clara, her gaze fixed on the microscope, barely acknowledged the statement. Perhaps he's right, she mused softly. He's not, Marcus interjected, pulling up a chair. You know, you saved Lorenzo. The doctors are too proud to admit their failure, so they're shifting the blame onto you. What do you expect me to do? Clara responded, a hint of frustration in her voice. I can't compel their respect. No, Marcus conceded, but Lorenzo can. The inevitable confrontation erupted 3 days later. Lorenzo, demanding a comprehensive medical briefing, sought updates on his recovery, potential complications, and long-term monitoring. Dr. Hayes, with a 20-minute presentation, skillfully employed jargon designed to obfuscate rather than enlighten. And the toxin analysis? Lorenzo pressed. Still pending, Hayes replied smoothly. These things require time when dealing with unknown compounds. Clara completed her analysis in 18 hours, Lorenzo stated, his voice a low tremor. Hayes's jaw visibly tightened. Miss Alvarez's interpretation was preliminary. We are conducting proper laboratory verification. Show me, Lorenzo declared, his voice rising slightly. I'm sorry. Show me your analysis, your findings, your conclusions. Hayes hesitated. As I said, it's still... You've had 3 days. Lorenzo cut him off, his tone chillingly soft. a warning sign everyone in the room recognized as more dangerous than a shout. Clara provided me with a full molecular breakdown, identified the source, and traced the purchase history. What have you offered me? With all due respect, Mr. Vitali, medical science demands— What I demand, Lorenzo interrupted, his eyes flashing, are results. Clara delivered them. You are delivering excuses. Dr. Reeves, clearing his throat, interjected. Boss, if I may, I've reviewed Miss Alvarez's work. It appears unorthodox in certain aspects, yet it is scientifically sound. She pinpointed markers we overlooked because she was searching for elements we hadn't even conceived of. Hayes shot Reeves a look that could curdle milk. Lorenzo rose to his feet. Effective immediately, Clara Alvarez is granted full access to all medical facilities, all records, and all staff. Her findings and recommendations will carry the same weight as those of any licensed physician in this room. Sir, the licensing board— Hayes began, but Lorenzo silenced him. The licensing board isn't keeping me alive. She is. Lorenzo's gaze swept across the room. She is not your rival. She is not your replacement. She is your superior in precisely one area, preventing me from being poisoned. And since that is currently my primary medical concern, you will extend to her every professional courtesy. Understood? A thick silence descended. Dr. Hayes, I asked you a question. Hayes's face was a mask of stone. Understood. Good. Clara will attend all medical briefings going forward. Any requests she makes for samples, data, or assistance will be treated as if they originated from me personally. Anyone who has an issue with this can submit their resignation. Not a single person stirred. After Lorenzo departed, Hayes walked past Clara without a word, but she distinctly heard him mutter to Dr. Chin, "This isn't over." Clara sensed the truth in his words. She had secured Lorenzo's endorsement, yet in doing so, she had alienated the very individuals entrusted with his daily care, his medications, and his recovery. In this precarious world, such a position rendered her more vulnerable than ever. Vincent Caruso received Lorenzo's invitation with profound suspicion. A peace summit, the message stated. Neutral ground, 6 representatives each. Let us end this before it becomes costly for both of us. Vincent scrutinized it 3 times, searching for the hidden snare. It's a trap, Hector Vega declared flatly. They sat in Vincent's office, the air heavy with cigar smoke. Obviously, Vincent agreed, setting the message down. The question is, what kind? He understood they had attempted to kill him, and that the assassins were undeniably linked to their organization. Hector leaned back. This is either retribution or a negotiation. Lorenzo doesn't negotiate from a position of weakness, Vincent countered. Neither do we, Hector replied with a chilling smile. We still hold certain advantages. The girl may have identified one compound, but she doesn't know everything. Ruiz has been developing something new, airborne, undetectable, untraceable. Vincent considered the implications. If Lorenzo truly wished him dead, he would already be dead. The very fact that he was offering a meeting indicated a shift in the power dynamics. We go, Vincent decided, but we go prepared. The rendezvous was arranged at the Monarch Hotel, a neutral property owned by families beholden to neither Lorenzo nor Vincent. The penthouse suite had undergone 3 thorough sweeps for weapons and surveillance devices. Clara toiled in her lab for 72 consecutive hours before the meeting. You need sleep, Marcus urged, bringing her coffee at 4 o'clock in the morning. I need this to work, Clara countered, her gaze unwavering from the intricate device she was assembling. It resembled an elegant pen, the kind carried by high-ranking executives. Contained within it was a pressurized canister holding an aerosol compound. Explain it to me again, Marcus requested. Clara held up a vial. This is Ruiz's signature. Every chemist possesses one trace elements they favor, stabilizers they trust implicitly. I've identified 3 compounds he's likely to have modified since the last attempt. This aerosol contains broad-spectrum neutralizers for all 3. And if you're mistaken about which poison they bring, then Lorenzo dies, and they will undoubtedly come for me next, Marcus stated, the gravity of the situation etched on his face. Clara's hands remained steady despite her utter exhaustion. But I am not mistaken. Ruiz is remarkably predictable. This time he'll opt for something airborne, easier to deploy, harder to trace. How do you know? Marcus pressed. Because it's precisely what my father would do. Clara sealed the canister. After a targeted poison fails, you broaden your approach. Make it appear as a ventilation malfunction or contaminated air. Ruiz is intelligent, but he is also arrogant. He will adhere to the pattern. Marcus studied her intently. You've changed. What? 3 weeks ago, you were terrified. Now you're... He searched for the right words. You're like your father, aren't you? This is what he prepared you for. Clara met his gaze. My father trained me to survive. I am choosing to do more than merely survive. The meeting was scheduled for 8 o'clock in the evening. Lorenzo arrived with 5 of his men. Marcus, Daniel, 2 enforcers, and Clara. Vincent's contingent was already present. Vincent himself occupied the head of the conference table, flanked by 5 men Clara did not recognize, though she immediately spotted Hector Vega, the cartel enforcer, the very man who would have orchestrated her demise. And attempting to blend in behind Hector, a man in a waiter's uniform carried a serving tray. Clara's pulse quickened. She touched the pen nestled in her jacket pocket. Lorenzo, Vincent began, standing and extending his hand. Thank you for accepting my invitation. Lorenzo shook it, his expression carefully neutral. Let's talk. They took their seats. The disguised waiter circulated with champagne glasses. Clara observed him meticulously. His movements were too precise, too deliberate, not those of a genuine server. The recent unpleasantness, Vincent began, a conciliatory note in his voice. Regrettable, a misunderstanding. Is that what we're now calling assassination attempts? Lorenzo's voice was deceptively mild. I had nothing whatsoever to do with what transpired to you. Interesting. Lorenzo nodded to Daniel, who produced Clara's report. Because the compound used to poison me was manufactured using techniques developed by Clara Alvarez, sold exclusively to your organization 4 years ago, and contains a titanium catalyst that only 3 labs in North America can produce. One of those labs is located in Juarez, your territory. Vincent's expression remained unchanged, but Clara noticed Hector's hand subtly shift. The faux waiter was now approaching Lorenzo's side of the table, placing down champagne glasses, but his other hand hovered near his jacket pocket. Clara rose smoothly. Excuse me, she announced, retrieving her pen. I need to make a note. She clicked the pen. An almost imperceptible mist sprayed from the tip, diffusing across the conference table. It carried a faint minty aroma, a scent Clara had incorporated to mask the chemical compounds. 2 seconds later, the counterfeit waiter pulled a small aerosol device from his pocket and pressed the trigger. Nothing happened. He pressed it again. Still nothing. His face blanched. Looking for this? Clara held up her pen. I just neutralized your airborne toxin. Aerosolized ricin derivative, if I'm not mistaken, mixed with a volatile carrier designed for rapid dissipation. Exceedingly clever. It would have killed everyone at this table within 90 seconds and left virtually no trace. The room erupted into chaos. Guns materialized on both sides. The fake waiter dropped his device and lunged for a weapon. Marcus fired twice before the man could draw. Nobody move! Vincent roared. But Lorenzo was smiling, actually smiling. You see, Vincent, this is precisely why I wanted this meeting. Lorenzo gestured towards Clara. Miss Alvarez, here, is Mateo's daughter, and she remembers everything. Every formula, every technique, every signature. She knows your playbook more intimately than your own chemists. Vincent's face had turned ashen. So, here's what's going to happen, Lorenzo continued, his voice dropping to a glacial chill. You attempted to kill me twice. You failed twice. You have antagonized the only individual in this city capable of identifying and countering every poison in your arsenal. And now, he tapped Clara's report, I possess irrefutable proof that directly links your organization to the attempt. This is war, Hector stated quietly. This was always war, Lorenzo countered, rising to his feet. You initiated it. I am merely ensuring you comprehend who will conclude it. Vincent's hand instinctively moved towards his jacket. Marcus's gun instantly rose. Don't, Lorenzo warned. We walk out of here tonight, but after that, Clara is going to systematically dismantle your entire operation, one formula at a time. Every poison you've ever utilized, every technique you rely on, she will expose it all. He turned to Clara. Tell them. Clara's voice was unwavering. I am privy to 47 formulas your chemist developed. I know how to counteract 39 of them. The remaining 8 I will decipher within a month. You cannot kill Lorenzo. You cannot harm his people, because I will perpetually be 3 steps ahead of you." Vincent stared at her with unadulterated hatred. Lorenzo walked towards the door, his men backing out with him. Clara was the last to leave, her hand still clutching the miraculous pen. "See you soon, Vincent," Lorenzo said. "Or perhaps you won't see me coming at all." The door closed behind them. War had been unequivocally declared, and Clara Alvarez had just emerged as the most formidable weapon in Chicago. 3 days after the disastrous meeting, Lorenzo made the decision to significantly upgrade Clara's laboratory. "Your current gear is functional," Daniel remarked as they traversed the ground floor of the expansive mansion, "but superior options exist." Clara interjected, "Where?" As he elaborated, "We're talking military-grade spectrometry equipment, a cutting-edge gene sequencer, and chemical synthesis machines capable of replicating compounds in mere hours, not weeks." Daniel responded, "A discrete facility we own just across town. It operates as a medical supply front. We'll arrange a heavily secured transfer of whatever you require tonight." Clara gave a nod, a slight prickle of unease at the back of her neck, a sensation she'd learned to trust implicitly. The convoy set off, comprising 3 obsidian SUVs. Clara occupied the central vehicle, flanked by Marcus and 2 guards, while Daniel spearheaded the procession in the lead car. A robust team of additional men followed in the third. Their departure from the mansion occurred at precisely 11 p.m., embarking on a route that snaked through industrial zones and deserted thoroughfares, a standard, unpredictable protocol designed to thwart any potential ambushes. Clara observed the somber edifices blurring past her window. Despite the air conditioning humming, a legacy of her father's training compelled her to keep the window ajar by an inch. "Always sample the air, mija," his voice echoed in her memory. "Your nose detects danger long before your brain does." It was as they navigated a bridge spanning the Chicago River that Clara registered an unmistakable scent, a faint, bitter almond chemical, oddly mingled with another substance. A petroleum-based dispersal agent she instantly recognized, engineered to propagate particulates over vast distances. Her father's words surfaced. "Airborne toxins demand carriers. Identify the carrier, and you'll anticipate the impending poison." "Stop the car!" Clara shrieked. Marcus's reaction was instantaneous, no questions asked. "Brake! All vehicles halt!" The SUVs screeched to a sudden stop, their tires burning against the asphalt, mirrored by the other vehicles. "What is it?" Marcus demanded, his voice taut. "Chemical dispersal in the air. An airborne toxin is coming from—" Clara swiftly scanned the bridge's surroundings, the towering structures on either side, the swirling water below. Then she spotted it, a subtle haze wafting from the rooftop of a warehouse to their right, almost imperceptible unless you knew precisely where to look. "Sniper position," she articulated. "Rooftop, 3 o'clock. They're deploying a chemical dispersal device to establish a kill zone on this bridge." As if validating her assessment, a crimson laser darted across the windshield. "Move!" Marcus bellowed, yanking Clara downwards just as the window imploded inwards. The bullet, intended for her head, embedded itself with a sickening thud into the headrest. "Contact right!" A voice crackled over the radio. More shots. The SUV's armored plating held firm, yet they found themselves trapped on the bridge, a perfect, inescapable killing ground. Clara's mind raced. The chemical mist was rapidly expanding, poised to engulf their vehicles within moments. A cyanide compound, she hypothesized, judging by the carrier's signature design to infiltrate vehicle ventilation systems and asphyxiate everyone inside. "We can't stay here," she gasped, her voice strained. "The toxin. We can't leave either." Marcus retorted, unleashing suppressive fire towards the warehouse. "They've got the entire bridge covered." Clara's thoughts tumbled. The dispersal pattern, driven by the northerly wind, meant the southern side of the bridge remained clear. "The river," she declared. "We jump." Marcus stared at her, incredulous. "Are you insane? They expect us to either retreat or advance. The toxins are blocking both directions, but they can't poison the water. It would be too diluted. The wrong delivery method." Another bullet ricocheted off the SUV's hood. "We jump or we die," Clara insisted. Marcus swore, then grabbed his radio. "All units, abandoned vehicles, into the river, south side, now." The doors burst open. Men poured out, retaliating with gunfire towards the warehouse. Clara stayed low, scrambling towards the bridge railing. The chemical haze was now an ominous 20 feet away, relentlessly closing in. She reached the railing, glancing down at the dark water, a perilous 15 feet below. "Clara, go!" Marcus shoved her. No hesitation. She plunged. The fall felt simultaneously eternal and instantaneous. Then the water struck her with the force of concrete, frigid, black. The current immediately seized her, dragging her downstream. She gasped for air as she resurfaced, her eyes scanning her surroundings. Lorenzo's men were also breaking the surface, vigorously swimming for the southern bank. Bullets zipped into the water, but the shooter's vantage point was now compromised. The bridge obstructed most of his firing lines. Clara's dress tangled around her legs, but she kicked hard. Her father's childhood swimming lessons were her sole lifeline. The current was powerful, pulling her away from the convoy, away from the bridge, away from the sniper. Hands grasped her. Marcus is hauling her towards the concrete embankment. "Climb! Move!" They scrambled onto the bank, soaked, trembling from a potent cocktail of adrenaline and cold. Daniel was already there, dripping, meticulously counting heads. "Everyone out?" he queried. "Rodriguez didn't make it," someone murmured, their voice heavy with sorrow. "Took a shot before he could jump." Clara's chest tightened. Rodriguez. She'd seen him in the hallways, always offering a respectful nod. Now he was dead. A casualty because someone wanted her dead. "The warehouse," Marcus growled, wringing water from his jacket, his gun miraculously still clutched in his hand. "We're hitting it." "They're gone by now," Daniel interjected. "Professionals. They'll have an evacuation plan." Clara's legs still trembled, but her mind was crystal clear. "Check the rooftop anyway. Chemical dispersal devices leave residue. I can identify the compound, trace the manufacturer." Marcus looked at her, drenched and shivering, yet already strategizing 3 steps ahead. "You just saved all our lives," he stated. "I saved my own life," Clara corrected him, her voice devoid of emotion. "You just happened to be here." Something shifted in Marcus's expression, perhaps respect, a dawning recognition that she was no longer a fortunate victim. As anticipated, they found the warehouse rooftop deserted, but Clara discovered precisely what she sought: the dispersal device, hastily abandoned in their assailant's flight, a sophisticated, custom-built piece of equipment. She meticulously photographed its serial numbers, collected residue samples, and committed its construction techniques to memory. "They made a mistake," she declared, sealing the samples. "They showed me their next-generation weapon. Now I know how to beat it." Back at the mansion, wrapped in thick blankets, Clara toiled in her lab until the first blush of dawn. By morning, she had not only identified the toxin and advanced cyanide derivative, but also formulated a counteragent capable of being administered as an inoculation to all of Lorenzo's people. When Lorenzo descended to check on her, she handed him a box of pre-filled syringes. "This will safeguard your men for up to 6 weeks against airborne cyanide compounds," she announced, her voice tinged with exhaustion. "They tried to render us helpless. Instead, they made us immune." Lorenzo took the box, his gaze fixed on her. She was 19 years old, had narrowly escaped death twice in 3 weeks, and possessed the hardened look of someone who had weathered a war. She had. And she was winning. "They're going to keep trying," Lorenzo observed. "I know," Clara met his eyes. "But every time they do, I learn something new. And eventually, they'll run out of tricks." "What if you run out first?" he challenged. Clara's smile was cold and sharp, an expression her father would have recognized instantly. "I won't." 6 days after the bridge ambush, Lorenzo found Clara in her lab at 3 a.m. She was enveloped by files, photographs pinned to a makeshift board on the wall, faces' names interconnected by red marker. "You should be sleeping," he admonished. "So should you," Clara replied without looking up from the chemical formula she was transcribing. "Your recovery demands a minimum of 8 hours. You're averaging 4. "I have a war to manage," he countered. "And I have a war to win," she finished, finally turning to face him. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. her hair pulled back in a haphazard knot. She looked simultaneously exhausted and vibrantly alive. Drawing up a chair, Lorenzo winced almost imperceptibly. The poison had left lingering effects, persistent weakness, occasional tremors. Clara missed nothing. "You're experiencing muscle spasms again," she noted. "I can adjust your supplement regimen." "That's not why I'm here," Lorenzo stated, placing a folder on her desk. "Open it." Clara complied. Inside lay a pristine Canadian passport bearing her photograph, but a different name, Sarah Mitchell. Alongside it, bank account information, the deed to a house in Vancouver, and comprehensive background documentation. $20 million, Lorenzo said quietly. "Clean money, untraceable. The house is paid off under your new name. Everything you need to disappear, to be safe." Clara stared at the passport, at the phantom image of Sarah Mitchell, a girl who had never witnessed her father's death, who had never memorized poison formulas to survive, who had never saved a mafia boss only to become a target herself. "Why?" she asked. "Because you've earned it." Lorenzo leaned back. "You saved my life. You've equipped me with the means to protect my family. You've proven yourself tenfold. But Clara, this life," he gestured towards the compound above them, "it never ends. Vincent wants you dead. The cartel wants you dead. And eventually, someone will get lucky or creative enough to succeed. You're only 19. You could have a real-life college, friends, a career that doesn't involve identifying murder weapons." His voice softened. "You could be normal." Clara gazed at the passport again, at Sarah Mitchell. She could almost envision her, that alternate version of herself, strolling across a university campus, preoccupied with exams instead of assassins, dating, laughing, living without constantly tasting the air for poison. It was a beautiful, seductive lie. "My father used to say something," Clara finally began. "He'd tell me the world divided us into two groups, those who wield power and those who suffer from it. Choose which one you want to be." "Smart man," Lorenzo commented. "Terrible man," Clara corrected him. "He engineered weapons that killed innocent people. He worked for monsters. He justified it by claiming he was protecting me. But truly," she traced the edge of the passport, "truly, he was just choosing power over his conscience." "And you don't want to make the same choice?" "I don't know what I want," Clara's voice cracked almost imperceptibly. "For 3 years, I scrubbed floors and remained invisible, believing that survival was enough. Then you gave me this," she gestured at the lab, "and I remembered what it felt like to matter, to utilize what I know for something beyond merely staying alive." "You matter here," Lorenzo affirmed, "but you'd also be a target here." "I'm already a target." Clara rose, walking to her evidence board. "Vincent, Hector, Ruiz, 3 assassination attempts in 4 weeks. And you know what? I've weathered every single one. Not by fleeing, not by seeking refuge, but by employing superior intellect. My father, you see, taught me the harsh realities of survival in his world. Now, Clara, you're presenting me with the opportunity to reshape it." She spun to face him. "If I vanish, Vincent retains his toxic network. The cartel still possesses their deadly formulas. Others, individuals lacking my expertise, will perish from weapons my father helped forge. That's not your concern." "Perhaps not," Clara's hands clenched, "but it is my decision." Lorenzo scrutinized her for an extended moment. "You grasp the implications of staying. This is not a temporary arrangement. Once you are fully integrated into this organization, there's no graceful exit. No ordinary life awaits when you grow weary of it. I'm certain Vincent will escalate his efforts. Additional adversaries will emerge. You will dedicate your life to watching your back. I do that regardless." Clara picked up the passport, holding it gingerly. "This woman, Sarah Mitchell, she's a fabrication. She represents who I might have been if my father were different, if I had made alternative choices. Yet I am Clara Alvarez, Mateo's daughter, and I'm weary of evading that truth." She gently placed the passport down. "I'm staying." Lorenzo's countenance remained inscrutable. Then, with a slow nod, he assented. "Very well, then we shall proceed appropriately." He produced another folder. This one contained legal instruments, agreements, non-disclosure agreements, and organizational charts. "You will hold an official position, head of defensive chemical operations, with complete authority over security protocols related to toxins, biological threats, and chemical weapons. A salary, benefits, a genuine role, not merely the girl in the basement. Clara accepted the folder, her gaze sweeping over the documents. They were authentic, official. This was not Lorenzo concealing her as a secret weapon. This was him weaving her into the very fabric of the organization. Marcus will manage your security detail, Lorenzo continued. A minimum of 6 rotating guards, armored transportation, safe houses in 3 cities. Everything you require, and in return, you ensure my survival. You ensure my family's survival. And when the moment arrives, his eyes hardened. You aid me in dismantling anyone who threatens us. Clara surveyed the laboratory surrounding her, the equipment, the files, the tangible legacy of her father that she was meticulously deconstructing and reshaping into something entirely new. I can do that, she stated. Lorenzo extended his hand. Welcome to the family, Clara. She shook it, feeling the gravity of her decision settle deep within her. No longer an invisible assistant, no more flight. She was choosing this life with all its inherent perils and shadows, but she was choosing it on her own terms. One condition, Clara declared, name it. When this is concluded, when Vincent is incapacitated and the immediate threats are neutralized, you will assist me in locating every person who acquired my father's formulas. Every client, every compound. I want them all exposed. Lorenzo raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious. It could span years. I have time. He smiled, genuinely this time. Then we have a deal. As Lorenzo departed, Clara glanced at the passport one final time. Sarah Mitchell, the ordinary girl, the secure existence. Then she fed it into the paper shredder. Clara Alvarez had made her choice. Now, she simply had to survive it. 6 weeks after Clara's decisive choice, the criminal underworld learned a stark, new commandment. Never provoke Lorenzo Vitali's chemist. This lesson was brutally imparted by the Romano family, who mistakenly believed they could exploit Clara's knowledge for their own gain. They dispatched a man with a tempting proposition, $5 million to decipher a competitor's security protocols, a task presented as mere information gathering, devoid of violence. Clara listened courteously, then, with chilling precision, extracted 3 distinct toxins from the man's clothing as he sat there, ingeniously hidden in his jacket lining, his watch band, and even the leather of his shoe. You arrived armed, she declared, placing the extracted compounds on her desk. These are instruments of assassination. Your purpose here wasn't recruitment. It was to ascertain if I could detect them. Had I failed, you would have ended me and commandeered my research. The man's complexion drained of all color. Convey this message to Romano, Clara continued, her voice an icy whisper. I possess knowledge of 47 methods to kill a person using common household items, 63 methods with medical supplies, and 92 methods that mimic natural causes. Should he dispatch anyone else, I shall personally demonstrate my favorite on him. The man fled with haste. Word of the encounter spread even quicker. Clara's laboratory, once a repurposed wine cellar, had been transformed into a bastion of scientific ingenuity. 3 additional chambers had been excavated and integrated, a dedicated testing facility, a secure storage vault, and an office where Clara coordinated seamlessly with Lorenzo's security teams. The walls were adorned with reference materials, her father's formulas meticulously transcribed and annotated, alongside new compounds she had personally synthesized. She had recruited 2 assistants, chemistry graduate students who asked no questions and were compensated at triple the market rate. They prepared samples, maintained equipment, and swiftly grasped that Clara's directives were not open for discussion. The medical staff's demeanor had undergone a complete reversal. Dr. Hayes had tendered his resignation 3 weeks prior, unable to stomach receiving orders from someone he deemed unqualified. Dr. Reeves had stepped into his role, and his initial act was to solicit Clara's expertise on all of Lorenzo's medications. I need you to scrutinize these, Reeves stated, presenting her with a tray laden with prescription bottles, Lorenzo's daily supplements. I aim to ensure there are no interaction risks, no potential for contamination. Clara meticulously examined each bottle, analyzing samples with her sophisticated equipment. On the 3rd bottle, a blood pressure medication. She uncovered it. "This has been tampered with," she announced, displaying the spectrometry results to Reeves. "Someone introduced a slow-acting anticoagulant, insufficient to cause immediate distress, but over several weeks, Lorenzo would have developed internal bleeding, appearing as a medication side effect." Reeves turned ghastly pale. How did? Who could? Someone with access to the pharmacy. Someone intimately familiar with his medical regimen. Clara's mind was already racing. Recall all medications from the current supplier. Inspect every bottle. And I require security footage of anyone who handled Lorenzo's prescriptions over the past month. They unearthed the leak within 48 hours. A pharmacy technician on Vincent's payroll. The individual was currently offering his explanations to Marcus within a soundproof room. Subsequent to this incident, every medication Lorenzo consumed first passed through Clara's discerning hands. Her reputation continued to grow with each foiled attempt. When a suspicious food delivery arrived at the mansion, Clara identified the botulism toxin in the imported caviar before anyone could taste it. When an air conditioning unit began emitting an unusual odor, Clara detected the delayed-release nerve agent before symptoms manifested. When a new security guard applied for a position, Clara noticed the faint chemical signature on his fingerprints, evidence he had recently handled explosive compounds, and exposed him as a saboteur. Lorenzo's inner circle ceased questioning her and began actively seeking her counsel. "Clara, can you assess this meeting location for environmental threats? Clara, we received this package. Is it safe? Clara, the enemy is utilizing a new supplier. What anomalies should we look for?" She had become utterly indispensable. Marcus would often quip, "We used to fret about bullets. Now we worry about everything we breathe, touch, or eat." Thanks, Clara. But his tone always conveyed profound respect. The doctors now regularly attended her weekly briefings. Clara stood at the head of the conference table, the very table where she had once served coffee, elucidating her latest discoveries. "Vincent's chemists have shifted their strategies," she explained, projecting photographs onto the screen. "They are transitioning from acute toxins to chronic exposure, smaller doses, extended timelines, rendering detection exceedingly difficult." Dr. Chen diligently took notes. "What is our countermeasure?" "I have devised a screening protocol. Blood tests every 72 hours for Lorenzo and immediate family. I have also established a baseline profile for each individual. Any deviation triggers an alert." "That's brilliant," Dr. Chen remarked. "It's necessary," Clara corrected. "Vincent isn't relenting, he's adapting. Therefore, we must adapt more swiftly." Following the meeting, Dr. Chen approached her privately. "I owe you an apology. When Hayes was still here, I harbored doubts. I now realize you have saved Lorenzo's life multiple times. You've likely saved all of us. I merely wanted you to know that I now understand what you are capable of." Clara nodded. She no longer craved validation, but it was nonetheless pleasant to hear. In the clandestine underworld, her name was whispered with a mix of awe and trepidation. The maid who cracked the poison code, Vitali's secret weapon, the girl who knows every avenue of death. Criminal organizations re-evaluated their tactics. Poison had been a dependable tool for decades, clean, plausible, effective. But with Clara Alvarez allied with Lorenzo, that weapon had transformed into a severe liability. Some families extended overtures of alliance. Others retreated, deciding Lorenzo had become too formidable to challenge. A few foolish individuals still made attempts. They never made a second. Clara's instincts had become Lorenzo's advanced warning system. She could enter a room and intuitively sense danger, a skill refined by years of survival, now formidable, weaponized for safeguarding. "How do you manage it?" Marcus once inquired, after she detected a poisoned envelope that had bypassed 3 security screenings. "My father trained me to perceive what others overlook," Clara replied. "Every chemical possesses a unique signature. Every poison leaves discernible traces. You merely need to know what to seek, and you always know." "Not always." Clara's expression was grave. "But I am learning. Every attempt imparts new knowledge. Eventually, I will know them all." Late one evening, Lorenzo visited her lab. She was immersed in her work, as always, surrounded by formulas and samples. "You should rest," he suggested. "I'll rest when Vincent is dead," Clara retorted without looking up. Lorenzo smiled. "You've transformed. Have I? The girl I employed 3 years ago was inconspicuous, quiet, striving to remain unnoticed." He approached closer. "Now you command a team. Doctors defer to your judgment. My adversaries fear you. You have become precisely what this family required." Clara finally met his gaze. "I transformed into the person I had to be." "And what exactly is that?" he inquired. "Someone who no longer flees." Lorenzo slowly nodded in understanding. "The underworld refers to you as the maid who deciphered the poison code. Do you know what I call you?" "What?" "The reason I'm still alive." Clara held his stare. "Then let's ensure you remain that way." She returned to her task, and Lorenzo left her undisturbed. In the subterranean laboratory, amidst instruments of both destruction and defense, Clara Alvarez had discovered her calling. No longer unseen, she was now indispensable. Vincent Crusoe's lifeless body was discovered in his penthouse 3 months after Clara made her decision to stay. The official cause of death was attributed to a heart attack, natural causes, with no evidence of foul play. However, only 3 individuals in Chicago were privy to the truth: Lorenzo, Marcus, and Clara. The wine Vincent consumed at his victory dinner, a celebration of a new weapons deal surrounded by his closest associates, contained a sophisticated compound that even Clara had required 2 weeks to perfect. This toxin meticulously mimicked cardiac arrests at a cellular level, rendering it undetectable by any autopsy and untraceable by any investigation. Her father's magnum opus, flawlessly executed by his daughter. "Poetic," Lorenzo had remarked when Clara unveiled her plan. "Necessary," Clara had corrected. With Vincent's demise, his organization fragmented into internal conflict. Hector Vega had retreated to Mexico. Ruiz was found deceased in his laboratory, an alleged accident, though Clara harbored suspicions. The cartel was systematically cleansing its ranks, eliminating anyone associated with the failed Chicago operation. The intricate poison network her father had helped construct was unraveling, and Clara held every crucial thread. It was late, approaching 2 o'clock in the morning, when Lorenzo descended into the laboratory complex. The space had once again expanded. What began as a converted wine cellar now stretched beneath half the mansion's foundation, featuring climate-controlled storage, advanced testing facilities, and a modest library of toxicology references. At its heart was Clara's primary laboratory, where she toiled, surrounded by the tools of her profession. Lorenzo discovered her there, as was often the case, hunched over a microscope, with data cascading across 3 computer monitors. "You're working late," he observed. Clara didn't exhibit surprise. She had recognized his footsteps, distinctively uneven due to the lingering effects of the poison that even she couldn't fully reverse. "I'm always working late," she replied, meticulously inscribing a note in her journal with precise handwriting that filled the page. "Your metabolism accelerates between midnight and 4 a.m. It's the optimal time to test medication adjustments. Is that what you're doing?" "Amongst other things," Clara indicated her screens. "I'm also analyzing a compound that surfaced in Detroit. Its signature is unlike anything we've encountered, possibly indicating a new player." Lorenzo pulled up a chair and settled in. He had learned that Clara articulated her thoughts more effectively when she could verbally process her work. "Tell me about it," he prompted. "It's remarkably elegant, far too sophisticated for street-level dealers." Clara displayed a molecular diagram. "Whoever concocted this possesses a doctoral-level comprehension of organic chemistry. However, they're employing unconventional synthesis pathways, reminiscent of techniques my father experimented with, but never disclosed. It's either someone who was familiar with his work, or someone who learned from the same sources he did." Clara's fingers flew across the keyboard, retrieving comparison data. "Either way, they'll eventually make a mistake. Everyone does, and when they do, I'll know precisely who they are." Lorenzo observed her at work, the confident grace of her movements, the absolute certainty of her analysis. This was the same young woman who had once been too timid to make eye contact. Now she commanded a multi-million-dollar laboratory, managed a team of assistants, and served as the primary defensive strategist for one of Chicago's most influential families. "Do you ever regret it?" he inquired. "Staying, choosing this life?" Clara paused, contemplating the question with gravity. Sometimes I ponder what Sarah Mitchell might be doing, the normal version of me. Perhaps she'd be in college studying chemistry. Maybe she'd have friends who don't carry firearms. Perhaps her worries would center on grades rather than assassination attempts. But she shook her head. She wouldn't be real. I attempted to be invisible, Lorenzo. I tried pretending to be normal. It simply didn't work. Clara met his gaze. What I do here, this is real. I utilize what my father taught me, but I decide its purpose. That truly matters. You've saved my life 4 times now, Lorenzo stated softly. 5, if we include Vincent's secondary attack plan that we never informed you about. 6, Clara corrected. There was the supplement contamination you overlooked. I swapped out your vitamins 2 weeks ago. Lorenzo chuckled, genuinely surprised. 6 times then, and I'll save it 6 more, or 60, or 600. Clara returned to her microscope. That's the job, isn't it? That's what I chose. Lorenzo rose, preparing to leave her to her work. At the doorway, he paused. Your father taught you to survive in a dangerous world, he said, but you became something more. You became the person who makes that world survivable for others. Clara didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was soft. He taught me to sense death. I chose to prevent it instead. Lorenzo nodded and departed. In the subterranean laboratory, surrounded by vials and formulas, monitoring equipment and chemical signatures, Clara Alvarez continued her work. Above her, the mansion slept under vigilant guard. Throughout Chicago, Lorenzo's people moved securely, safeguarded by protocols she had developed. In cities across America, criminal organizations reevaluated their tactics, understanding that poison was no longer the invisible weapon it once was. The maid who had saved a dying man had evolved into the mastermind who kept him alive. Once unseen, she now stood at the core of an empire's survival, not through brute force or intimidation, but through intellect, recollection, and the courage to prioritize purpose over safety. Clara made another entry in her journal, documenting the unusual properties of the Detroit compound. Tomorrow, she would conduct further tests. Next week, she would brief Lorenzo's security team. Next month, she would likely identify another threat and neutralize it before it could strike. The work was ceaseless. Yet, for the first time in her life, Clara Alvarez was not fleeing from her father's legacy. She was actively reshaping it, one formula at a time.